In this problem, we're going to go the extra mile to determine what is the best measure of central tendency to use in a situation. So let's check out this word problem. It says, the number of movies your classmates have watched this year are given below. Which measure of central tendency best describes the typical number of movies watched? So we have options as to what measures of central tendency to use. So without further ado, let's solve for those measures of central tendency. Well, the first one, and probably the most involved in terms of calculations, is the mean. So to find the mean, we're going to add up all of these numbers. So we'll do 6 plus 9 plus 10 plus 10 plus 14 plus 8, holy cow, that's a lot of numbers, plus 19 plus 87. Wow, we'll talk about that 87 in a second. And that is all divided by, let's see, well, how many numbers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 numbers. So that's divided by 8 numbers right there. So with all of those numbers, we're going to get 173. Wow. 173 total movies watched and divided by 8. When we divide all those out, I believe we get an answer of 21.625. So in terms of units, you're saying we've watched 21.625 movies per student. Huh. Well, there's an outlier here. Remember that. 87 is much higher than those other numbers. More on that in a minute. Let's talk about the median. The median's not hard to find. You know what? I'm going to do the mode first, because if I do the median first, we're going to do a lot of crossing out of numbers. So the mode is the most frequently occurring number. The only number that happens more than once is 10. And so the mode has to be 10. So the most popular of all the data points that we got back is 10. Now, we have the median. How do we find the median? We go from the outside to the inside. So we're going to cross out the numbers, highest and lowest, until we get to our middle number. And we arrive at 10 and 14. Well, we have 2 numbers in the middle there, so we have to find the average of them to find the median. No sweat. So I'll take 10 plus 14 and I'll divide that by 2. That'll give me 24 divided by 2, which is equal to 12. So my median is 12. Now, let's look at these numbers here. The mean is 21.625, whereas the median is 12, and our mode is 10. That mean is above every single data point here, except for the 87. That 87, that far outlier, some students watching way too many movies, that number is way drawn up by this number here. So while the 21 is close to the 19 and 18, it does not represent most of the other data. So the mean is not a good representation of the data, namely because of the outlier that's there. So we're not going to use that. We're not going to use the mode either, and very rarely will you use the mode unless you're asked the question, what is the most frequently occurring number, or the most popular of the reactions, or the number of points, or the number of, in this case, movies that are watched. So we're not looking for the most popular response. So the mode is out. That leaves us with the median, which is 12. And 12 sits nicely right in the middle. We have half the numbers are below it, half the numbers are above it. That gives you a nice, decent read of the values and is not affected by the massiveness that is 87. Very cool stuff. And this kind of interpretation of the data is important because someone might say, well, the average is 21, so most students watch 21 movies. It's not true. So you have to be able to read the data closer than just what your reactions are to one data measure of central tendency. That's up to you to be the judge. Now there is one other thing that we could look at with the data, which is called the range. And I'm saving that for the end of this video because it's so quick. If we look at the range, that's the distance between the highest and the lowest numbers. So the highest number is 87. So we're looking at the range, R-A-N-G-E. And that's the highest number minus the lowest number, because that gives you the span between all the numbers. And 87 minus 6 is going to be 81. So that tells you there's quite a range or span of numbers there, caused mostly by the outlier. You take away the outlier and the range is now between 19 and 6, or 13, which is not that much difference between the high and the low numbers. That outlier really messes around with the data. I hope you enjoyed this little little investigation into the many different kinds of measures of central tendency and how you can determine which one is the best and what they tell you about the data.